Hi all, a new day and new stories from Ocean Story. Just listen to this story. I had a fight with my brother about our father's family album. He took photos throughout his life. My father Daniel was a wonderful man, but he died at the age of 87. The whole family loved my dad for his sincerity and also for his excessive love of photography. Daniel literally tried to take pictures of everything. He had a bunch of family albums during his lifetime. He took pictures everywhere: Christmas, Thanksgiving, someone's birthday, or just a family dinner. In one family meeting, my dad took more pictures than I have taken in my entire life. My brother Henry always loved it when our dad took pictures. We would often go to my dad's house and spend hours looking at old photos. There are many relatives in the photos that I haven't seen in years. Looking at old photos has always brought back sincere emotions for me. Henry said that after our dad passed away, he would take the album and make copies of the photos to give to all of our relatives who would come for Thanksgiving. I thought it was a good idea, so I had no problem with it. Last Saturday, we had a family Thanksgiving dinner where my brother gave out their photos to everyone. It was really cute, and everyone really liked the pictures. The next day, I asked Henry if I could see the photos directly from the album he had taken. Henry said that it was not possible at the moment because he had given the album to a friend who was in charge of copying the photos. 3 weeks passed and I asked my brother again about the album. Henry started to say that he would not give me the album because it was in bad condition and could be damaged if it was moved from house to house. I told him that it would be no problem for me to come to his house with my family and see the photos. Henry started to say that he didn't have time for that. For several days, I pestered my brother about the album. Henry didn't give me anything concrete. One day, my brother's son came to my house, and he had some original photos from my wedding that my dad had taken. Jackson gave me these photos and said, "My dad gave this to you." I thanked the kid and asked him why he didn't bring more photos. Jackson said, "Actually, I just took the photo. My dad thinks that it made my grandfather feel very neglected if we took his album from house to house. That's why he doesn't want to give you our grandfather's album." This really hurt me because my brother thinks I'm not worthy to keep our dad's album. I called Henry and talked about the situation. I told him that he shouldn't think that I could mess things up. The memories that our father left behind are very valuable to me. I don't even need to keep the album with me all the time. I just need to have a few days to watch the album with my family. My children did not see a lot of things in those photos. Moreover, my brother's album will just lie around. Henry started to say, "Brother, you know that I value our father very much, and I don't want to risk his last memories, so I will leave the album in my house." I started to talk to my brother to give in and not act like an asshole because Henry almost never looked at the album for more than 5 minutes. All he ever said was that he appreciated those photos. But Henry is not a very synthetic person like me. Henry is still standing his ground and won't give me the album. I think that my brother is a selfish asshole who appropriated the family album for himself. Ella, it's clear from this story that the family album has tremendous sentimental value for both you and your brother. However, the way this situation is unfolding is disappointing. It's important to remember that the album represents shared memories of your father, and ideally it should bring your family closer together, not create divisions. While it's natural for people to be protective of such valuable items, it's equally important to recognize that family ties should take precedence over material possessions. Your brother should have been kinder and not threatened that you would no longer receive the family album. Henry cannot know for sure how your dad reacted to this, so this is just cheap manipulation from your brother. Keep standing your ground. It's nice to see that your father's passion for photography has left a legacy of cherished memories. However, it is unpleasant to see a dispute in the family over the right to own the family album. Family ties should always be stronger than material possessions, no matter how sentimental they may be. In this situation, both you and your brother need to look at the bigger picture. The memory of your father should be a source of unity and love between family members. Instead of letting this argument grow, it is important to find common ground through understanding and compromise. Perhaps a solution could be to hold a family gathering where everyone can enjoy the album together. But to be honest, I'm disgusted by the way your brother decided to do this on his own. You have the same right as Henry to take the album back to your place. Why is it okay for him and not for you? Now I want to tell a different story. One day my mom got married to Jackson. They have been together for a little over 8 years and married for about 5 years. My mom divorced my birth father, and I haven't seen him for a very long time. At the same time, we still have a good relationship with my dad's family. I am currently 17 years old, and my brothers are 12 and 3 years old. Jackson did not adjust well to becoming a father to 2 other children at one point. I think Jackson thought he was just going to be a new dad for us because our own dad left us when we were little. My mom hates her ex-husband, but I convinced her not to throw away all the old photos of my dad. I wanted to have at least some memories of him. Jackson wasn't a bad stepfather and didn't do anything bad to my mom. But despite this, I didn't feel inside that Jackson would be a new dad for me. Jackson sensed this and saw that I wasn't really connecting with him. So Jackson and my mom decided to go to a family therapist. They thought it would help improve our family bond. My mom often told me and my brother Sebastian to be more sensitive to Jackson. Over the years, she went to therapy and took us with her as well. In the last 3 months, we started going to that doctor often. I didn't really like it because I knew exactly what was wrong, that no one can force me to love someone I don't want to love. At one of these sessions, my mother sincerely said that she would like for me and Sebastian to start loving Jackson the way she loves him. At the time, Jackson said that he was having a hard time with us mentally. Most of all, he was referring to our relationship with him. Jackson said he felt like a secondary or consolation to us, and that we didn't really love him or even consider him a full-fledged family member. Even though he is married to my mom started consoling my stepfather right there in the office. She assured Jackson that we all love him and everything he thinks about the fact that there is no love and respect for him in this family is wrong. The following times were very similar to this trip to the therapist. Then for some time in the sessions, Jackson and the therapist talked about that he sees how Sebastian and I don't like him and don't want him to show much attention to us. Jackson told that therapist that his condition is much worse now, and he feels like we value our pet cat more than him, like he's second class to us. Jackson told all this to the doctor, who passed it on to my mom. Then Jackson talked about it separately with my mom, and he said that he had never felt love from any of the children. Jackson used to argue with his wife that my brother and I were always more interested in hearing about our cousin's affairs in Canada than we were in asking Jackson about his affairs at work. It was moments like these with us that caused Jackson to have doubts that Sebastian and I valued him. Jackson also went on to say that he sees this in many things, including the fact that my brother and I don't consider his family to be our close friends or family. Jackson argued his thoughts with a time when there was a family dinner. Sebastian or I did not ask our mom to invite our stepmother's brother or his mom. He told my mom that at that moment, it was a big blow to him. One day, my mom called me and Sebastian into the room with Jackson. They decided to talk about our family relationships. To my great surprise, Sebastian spoke first and said that I had never done anything to make Jackson feel bad or unimportant to us. My brother said, I just don't think of Jackson as my dad. As soon as that was said, Jackson started talking about how much it upset him and gave him a lot of heartache because Sebastian doesn't want to have a good fatherly relationship with him. My mom started saying that we should all think about the importance of our relationships and not say such harsh words because Jackson has been with us for a long time and we could finally accept him into our family. My mom suggested that Sebastian and I start being more with the whole family so that we could feel the love from Jackson. To be honest, I thought it was a stupid suggestion and felt like coercion. I sat there and didn't say anything about this stupid idea. I'd rather go out with my friends than be with Jackson and my mom. However, the following situation almost destroyed any good relationship between me and my parents. At school, I was given an assignment to write about my family branch and write about the importance of a strong family. My mom found out about my assignment and asked me to give it to her so she could read the paper. As usual in my work, I did not write about Jackson. Jackson is more important to my mom than to me, so I didn't see the point of writing about him. It hurt my mom that I still don't recognize Jackson as important. She told her husband about it. Because of this, a new wave of Jackson insults started in the house again. He came up to me more than once and asked why I was being so rude to him. After all, Jackson is always doing something good for the whole family. I told him, "You're not my dad, so I didn't write about you." My mom scolded me for that answer and went to comfort her husband. I don't think I did anything wrong. Jackson asked me, and I answered him honestly. My mom started to make me apologize to Jackson, but I don't respond to her words. I won't do something I don't feel. I don't care if they think I'm rude or selfish for doing so. Sophia, it is obvious that this situation is causing tension in your family, and I can understand that you are struggling with your relationship with Jackson. On the one hand, your feelings are valid. You cannot force yourself to feel a certain way. However, it is also important to keep in mind that your mom and Jackson genuinely care about you. From a constructive perspective, it can be helpful to have an open and honest conversation with your mom and Jackson about your feelings. Share your perspective, but also listen to theirs. Even if you don't like Jackson, you shouldn't be so blunt about it. I didn't like my stepfather either, but I was able to talk to him about it. After that, I never had any problems communicating with him. Camila, try to understand their point of view as well, because they undoubtedly want the best for the family. Finding common ground and compromise can lead to improved family dynamics over time. Because from your story, it's clear that your parents care about you and Sebastian. Maybe you and your brother should at least show Jackson some scripted love. I think you should grow out of your resentment and accept the fact that you have a new dad now. He's not your real dad, but Jackson is always there for you and is trying to build a good relationship. Aiden, blended families often come with their own set of emotional challenges, and it's not uncommon for teenagers to feel distance from their new parents. In this situation, it is important for your parents to understand that feelings cannot be imposed. You have every right to your emotions, and this is not necessarily a sign of rudeness or selfishness. However, it is equally important to consider the impact of your words and actions on Mom and Jackson. Because even though you and your brother are right in what you say, it doesn't give you the right to say something so rude about Jackson. He's trying to be nice, and you've hurt him so badly. A story that really surprised me. I have been married to my girlfriend Mia for 6 years. Before we got married, I already had children of my own. I have 3 children, 2 sons, 20 years old and 18. I also have a daughter who is 15 years old. Mia had a little girl of her own who is 4 years and 2 months old. 2 weeks ago, my wife Mia had an emergency. She partially takes care of her aunt Amelia. One day, my wife received a call from Amelia's husband, asking her to stay at home with her aunt and look after her, because he was going away for a few weeks on business. At the same time, Amelia called and said that she was experiencing frequent headaches and nausea. Mia responded to these words and decided to go. Mia asked my 2 sons to stay with her daughter Harper. My oldest son said he had boxing practice coming up, so he couldn't miss it. As for my middle son, he said he couldn't stay home and look after Harper. He had to go to visit his classmate. My youngest daughter was at her grandmother's house at the time. Therefore, I could not physically help Mia. I was at a meeting with my work colleague. We were discussing possible options for the development of my company. Moreover, my work colleague Evelyn is a close friend of mine. She was at a meeting with her boyfriend Elijah because Elijah is a very good financier and could help us a lot. My wife called me to come over immediately. I explained to Mia that I had an important meeting. In the end, my wife took our daughter with Mia to her aunt Amelia's house. Then Mia came home and attacked me and the boys like a tiger. Mia started saying that we were all selfish and only thought about our own business and comfort, when at that moment, there are more important things than personal affairs. I tried to explain to her that the other kids were busy and had really important things to do for themselves. At the very moment, Mia needed help from them, but she told me to stop covering for my adult sons for their selfishness, because my oldest son could have skipped one training session and looked after Harper, and my middle son could go visit the next day, without causing such difficult circumstances for the family. Mia also scolded me for being protective of the boys and for not coming to sit with Harper, but I told her that I couldn't leave a business meeting. That directly affects our happy future, because Elijah didn't come to town very often. In fact, this was my only chance to make a new financial structure for my business. Mia was screaming more than telling us anything important. Mia also said she was canceling the family Thanksgiving trip this year to her parents' house. My 2 sons were very upset and said it wasn't fair. I started to tell Mia that it would not be right to cancel such an important trip to her parents. Mia just wanted to punish me and my children for our indifference, but that I shouldn't tell my wife. Mia refused to discuss it later and did not want to talk to me that day. To make this story clear, Mia was mostly always at home, so she looked after Harper. Most of the time, I deal with my own issues in my own company. My wife doesn't really want to talk to me or our children. Mia resents all of us for our terrible behavior. Mia didn't even want to make me coffee. 3 days after the whole thing happened, my older children are busy with their studies and their own affairs, and they have no experience at all with babysitting small children like Harper, Lucas. It's understandable that Mia felt overwhelmed and frustrated, especially if she was the primary caregiver for Harper. On the other hand, your older children had prior commitments and couldn't be there at the time. It's unfortunate that it all happened at the same time. It can be helpful to discuss this as a family and establish some rules or contingency plans. This way, everyone's responsibilities and obligations will be clear. And hopefully, this will help avoid similar misunderstandings in the future, because such situations should not spoil your overall family relationships. I think you should have been softer with your wife, especially since Mia was on her way to help her Aunt Amelia, who had health problems. Mason, it's sad to read about how the family coped with the emergency Mia found herself in. While everyone had their reasons, it is clear that there was a lack of communication and empathy. Instead of finding a way to support Mia in her time of need, there was a disconnect that caused unnecessary conflict, which you and your children are guilty of. No matter what you think, your wife sincerely asked for help from her family, but at the right time, everyone ignored Mia's request for help. If I were her, I would be very disappointed in such a family. Nevertheless, Mia's reaction, although emotional, was somewhat understandable given the circumstances. However, canceling the Thanksgiving trip for the entire family as a form of punishment seems excessive. It is important for family members to discuss and solve problems together. It is not necessary to take such drastic measures. Logan, man, I'm ashamed to read that you're making excuses for yourself in this story. Your wife is constantly busy taking care of Harper. While you're at work, your own children are deliberately ignoring their stepmother's needs by making up various excuses. And then you tell your wife with a confident expression that your children are not to blame and had more important things to do. What could be more important than the health of one of your family members? You are very selfish with your children. Immediately apologize to Mia and promise to make amends. Otherwise, your relationship could be ruined. Abigail, I don't understand what kind of family you have there. Do you have a jungle where it's every man for himself? As a parent, you should teach your children the right way to behave and act, but you have started to justify their selfish behavior. I think Mia should have slapped you for such stupid behavior. Explain to Amelia later that you were happy to make more trouble for her. Be more responsible and recognize your own mistakes. Otherwise, Mia will think, why do I need a man who doesn't support me? So before it's too late, fix it. Next story. 6 years ago, my father Alexander taught my older sister Elizabeth how to ride an old motorcycle because my parents wanted to fulfill my sister's dream and give her a new motorcycle for her birthday. At that time, my sister was almost 17 years old. My dad was sitting on the back of the motorcycle and giving Elizabeth tips on how to ride and maneuver better. At one point, my sister started to slow down, but my dad started to say something to her, and Elizabeth started to get distracted by him. It happened at an intersection where there are usually no cars, but this time there was a woman in an expensive car. Unfortunately, because my dad started distracting Elizabeth, she lost her eyes on the road and drove right into the car. At that point, the situation started to get conflicting, as my dad started to blame Elizabeth for her inattention. In order to avoid big problems, my dad was able to negotiate with the owner of the car my sister hit. Alexander was able to persuade the woman to cover the entire cost of the repairs without the police. If someone thinks that there was only one scratch, it was not. My sister and dad were unharmed, but the cost of repairing the side door of that car exceeded $20,000. At that time, it was not a small amount of money for my family. My mom and dad had to give away all the money they had saved to fly to our relatives in Germany. My father even borrowed money from his neighbor. And of course, my money that was saved for my studies was spent on paying off the debt. Then, because of this, I lost a great opportunity to go to another state for work. Because my parents didn't have any more money at that time, I won't say that I'm angry with Elizabeth. I'm just very upset that this situation happened to our family. I recently went away to think about life a bit and took a vacation. At the moment, I am 25 years old. I still don't have a family or a girlfriend. I just have a little hamster at home, that's all. I have a lot of friends from college. They all have their own families or relationships, even if they are not in a relationship. So their life is not as bad as mine was. Most young people dream of having a good income, to go to work at 10 in the morning, and be home at the family table at 5 in the evening. My life hasn't turned out the way I would have liked it to. I thought it would be a cool idea to leave and do my own thing. I decided to become a fashion designer, so I immersed myself in my computer work. I never know why this particular business took my fancy. Maybe it was because I could make good money there. My mom complained that I was still single and didn't have a good paying job. Once my dad supported her and I couldn't stand it. I snapped and told my dad, "If you hadn't dragged our family into this, after that accident you caused, maybe I would have had a job after college. I would have a family and not complain about my life every day. So Dad, I'm sorry that I'm not your ideal yet." My father and most of the family members were angry with me for saying such harsh words, because in 4 days it was my mother's birthday, and we were talking on the phone on her birthday. I may have overreacted, but I think I was right. We are stuck in this quagmire because of an accident my father caused a long time ago, and because of that, we've been in a difficult situation for years. My sister apologized a lot to me later. I felt like an asshole. I'll add a little bit about why I'm so angry with my dad. Many of my friends have graduated from college or university. They were able to quickly find a good job and build a promising life. To study in college, I had to go to work during the first shift and study during the second shift. It was very exhausting and the quality of my studies was poor, to put it mildly. At that time, my parents were just starting to recover their money. In fact, I paid for my college education myself. My uncle also helped me cover my debt. I can even say that he helped more than my parents. That is why I am angry with my own father. Alexander has never admitted that he was to blame for Elizabeth's crash into a very expensive car. I am very annoyed with my dad's behavior. Because of my emotions, I hurt my mom, and many people think I'm a rude jerk, but it all started again because of my dad. Elizabeth and I have become much worse towards our dad. After everything we have been through, Ethan, your personal life choices should not be judged by anyone. In situations like this, emotions can run high, and it is understandable that you and your sister are feeling frustrated about the impact of this event on your lives. It is important to acknowledge your feelings, but it is also important to find a way to communicate constructively with your family, especially your father. Blaming each other may not lead to a solution. I think your dad should be the first to start these conversations. At the very least, Alexander has to admit some of his guilt in this story, because your sister didn't dent the fender of someone else's car by choice. When it comes to your career and personal life, it's important to remember that everyone's journey is unique. Comparing yourself to others can be frustrating, but success comes in different forms and at different times for everyone. Your pursuit of a career in fashion is admirable, and focusing on your passion and goals can lead to a fulfilling life. I don't understand why your parents always have a problem with something. Let them leave you alone. It's your life and only you can decide. Or does your dad want to make trouble for you here too? Jacob, you're really good for not complaining about your fate and starting to work at an early age. I know guys who will do nothing when they have problems. It's a shame your parents didn't have the money to pay for your education in full. Of course, it could have helped you in the future. But for now, be who you choose to be. Your parents have lost their power over you, so they partially want to get it back and try to give you advice. But of course, this advice is no longer relevant, and it doesn't seem like your parents are just meddling in your life anymore. They absolutely shouldn't do that. Mila, I am sorry that your sister Elizabeth was hurt by your father's actions. I am sure that Elizabeth will feel guilty for a very long time because she has caused poverty in your family. Of course, there is a part of her fault in that fateful accident, but I am well aware that Alexander's actions were critically wrong. He definitely should not have yelled at his daughter. Everyone was in a state of shock, but your dad Alexander acted like a jerk. My next story. My parents worked hard throughout their lives. all to make great conditions for themselves and their children. Thus, in their 40s, my parents became owners of a large house with 2 floors. We had a small yard area, and we had 2 bathrooms and a total of 10 rooms for different tasks. All thanks to the fact that my father was able to get a high position in his job. There are only 6 people in my family. I have 2 brothers and 1 sister, 4 of us in total. I was practically the youngest when my mom died, and my dad started raising us on his own. He was very attached to his wife, so my father never tried to find a replacement for her. It used to annoy me a bit, but now I realize that it was good for our family, because we all don't get along well with new people. My dad is quite old now, and my siblings, and I will have the house after him. We all continued to live there until my brothers got older and went to university in another city. So at some point, it was just me and my younger sister living in the house. For the past 3 years, one of my older brothers has been complaining that he has no money. This is because Matthew is very fond of gambling and spent a lot of money on it. My brother was not a debtor or anything like that, but he wanted to get as much money as he could out of everything. The worst thing Matthew could have done was to start pressuring our dad to give up his inheritance for him right now. Of course, my dad didn't agree with that. However, Matthew was not stupid and was studying to be a lawyer and knew how to get my dad to do it. My brother said we could just buy his share and he wouldn't do anything more serious. Matthew was consumed with his desire to get more. That's why Matthew put up his share of the inheritance at twice the price. That is, his share was worth about $40,000. Matthew said we should give him $78,000. At that time, I had recently gotten married and did not have that kind of money. Matthew began to put pressure on all of us and said that he could disinherit us all. My oldest brother Samuel and I agreed that we would pool our money and buy Matthew's share from him. It was very difficult for me, but it was better than Matthew leaving us all with a burdensome inheritance, especially since I was teaching my sister, who was just out of college and had no money for her own place. All of these factors pressured Samuel and I to accept our brother Matthew's terms. We tried to compromise, but Matthew said, I didn't care about the property. Matthew kept saying, the most important thing is that I will make a lot of profit from it. Since then, we all realized that our brother Matthew began to value only money, not family relationships. It's been 2 years since I have spoken to my brother Matthew. I didn't even know the details of his life until some time ago. Once I was talking to my dad in his room, he said to me, do you realize that your brother Matthew is no longer the good guy he used to be? Now he's ready to betray the whole family just to get money. My dad told me at that moment, I'm giving my whole share to you, Samuel, and your little sister. I asked my dad, what about Matthew? He told me, that asshole won't get anything more from me. Matthew was ready to leave us all on the street. So our agreement went into effect, and we started to re-register the house. After a while, Matthew found out about it because he was talking to some of our mutual friends. Matthew was so angry with me and our dad that he came to my house at 7 in the evening and caused a scandal. When I explained everything to him in a clear way, Matthew said, you just want to get more benefits for yourself. The next day, Matthew went to our dad and accused him of that my father had taken Matthew out of the inheritance letter and made the house over to Samuel and our younger sister. Matthew thinks we're assholes and is open about it to everyone around him, but he never tells us that he wanted to deprive all of us of the house we grew up in for his own purposes. My brother Matthew is an asshole, don't you think? Scarlett, it is clear that Matthew's focus on financial gain has weakened family ties and caused a significant rift. Situations like this can be emotionally difficult for everyone involved, and it's understandable that you are upset by his actions. It's unfortunate that Matthew's pursuit of money has led to such conflict in your family. He should not have accused you or your brother Samuel of being greedy. After all, it was your brother Matthew's own fault that he lost a lot of money gambling. You should have hired a lawyer or a notary to sort out the whole situation, because I think Matthew was bluffing you. Victoria, on the one hand, it's very important for family members to respect each other's financial decisions and find a fair way to divide the inheritance. But it's equally important to maintain strong family ties and not let money get in the way of those ties. It must have been a difficult decision for you and Samuel to buy out Matthew's share, to prevent any potential problems in the future. It seemed like you all had the best interest of the family in mind. I wish Matthew could have seen that. He acted like a jerk who didn't care about the family. I don't think a real brother would do that to his family. After everything Matthew did, he has no place in your family. Forget his name forever. How did this guy think he was going to do his dirty work? It's like Matthew comes to his old father and says, "Either you pay me money, or tomorrow you will sleep on the street." Your brother Matthew is an absolute bastard.